help the citizens of my town and other towns. I mean, this isn't just a North Smithfield thing. I mean, North Kingstown, Woonsocket, Cumberland, Johnston, Block Island, Narragansett, all your tax bills, all your carve-out tax values are set by the state. You're probably getting an increase too. If you're not looking at it, and who does,
right,
you're not going to know.
That's, I think, the most important part is that I don't think a lot of people would necessarily be aware of this. And you said personally you weren't aware of it until you stumbled upon it accidentally.
Exactly. And, as you and I were discussing before we went on the air, my big thing about this whole thing is the state sets the values in the NADA guides. Now, my value increased 25%. If 50% of your town's vehicles increase 25%, that's a 12.5% increase in their budget, in their revenue. Now, it becomes a spending issue because if they don't have that 12.5%, they're going to be over on their budget.
Right.
So are they going to say no to 12.5%? Are they going to say no to Tony Soly's 25% increase to the state? No. They should.
And that's on top of, on the state level, fees going up for registration, fees going up for licensing, fees going up for the license plates.
Exactly. And my hopes with the Post and my hopes with all of this is that the town of North Smithfield, myself, other like-minded individuals in the town of North Smithfield can sit there and go, this is wrong. My taxpayers are being taken advantage of, even though they're reaping rewards. I mean, let's face it, all these communities are reaping rewards from the increased value of your car. But I would hope that rather than sit there and look at the dollar value, they would sit there and go, my taxpayer is being burdened because of this. And that my town and your town and, Sally's town and Johnny's town would sit there and go with them to the state and say, this isn't right. Our taxpayers, even though we're reaping the reward of it, our taxpayers are being hurt by this. Now, I've said it on other shows, and I've said it in the media, and I've said it on my Facebook post, but if I get a bill from the town of North Smithfield, and I have to pay the bill and write the check to the town of North Smithfield, and that money goes into the North Smithfield bank account, and they use that to fund public initiatives. Well, not for nothing. North Smithfield needs to be responsible for it. I mean, I'm sitting there going, if I buy a brand new car today, if I go over to Inskip and I buy a car today, and let's say I buy a Volvo, and I'm driving home up 95, going back up to North Smithfield up 146, and the check engine light comes on. Well, even I just paid Inskip, $50,000. Do I bring that car back to Volvo, or do I bring it back to Inskip? I bring it back to Inskip, even though Volvo's getting the money.
Yeah. So
Volvo suggested the MSRP on it, but Inskip's ultimately going to fix it. So I kind of look at it the same way. Yeah, the state's saying it's worth this much, but you're the one that's getting the money, so you need to help me address it or address it yourself. I don't need to be the one addressing it.
So I'm clicking through the Valley Breeze right now, which is one of the last vestiges of local traditional paper-based media, and I'm seeing a lot of support for you in the comment section of a few different articles. What has the support been, and has there been any support from any of the administration, or has everybody kind of fallen in behind the town administrator?
I actually haven't heard from members of the administration, the council, or the administrator herself. On the Channel 10 interview, she did allude to looking forward to working with me, though I have not received any official notice that she accepted my the rescinding of my resignation. As of right now, personally, I consider myself still being resigned until I get official word that I'm back on the committee. But as far as the general public, it was our championship week for basketball, so I've seen, we got 220 kids in our league, and I don't think there's been a single parent that hasn't come up to me and said, I can't believe this is happening to you.
Right, because I think they all get it. They're in your shoes, and chances are there's people that are thinking maybe the same way as you, but are reluctant to speak up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what ends up happening is, you look at, I think I mentioned it on Tara Granahan's show yesterday, but you look at the Turn to 10 link on Facebook, and I think last time I looked, there was something like 200 or 300 likes and like 300 comments, I think it was 300 comments. And I think there was one that said, maybe it wasn't the right forum, but I support you. And every other one of them said, what about freedom of speech? What about freedom of speech? What about freedom of speech? So I think it's the first time, I don't know about you, but I swear, I think it's the first time I've ever looked at a news article where people weren't tearing each other apart.
That's true.
I mean, everyone was on the same page for once. And ultimately what it does come down to is a free speech issue. I mean, I didn't assault anyone verbally. I asked a question. It's a free speech issue. It went from being a tax issue to a free speech issue in a matter of a second.
And kind of as we transition to new media, and kind of what we're doing here, it plays into, because we can do a long format interview, kind of at our leisure, and we'll get it out there and people will listen to it, but we're not worried about going to the traffic or going to the news or anything like that. But for a new media aspect, the idea that they didn't like your tone, I find interesting, because I can't even tell you how many times that through a text message or through a Facebook post or a kind of a joking tone, has been misconstrued, or the idea of the administration not liking your tone on an internet posting, I find very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, tone, you and I sitting here, we can judge tone, right? You and I having a common discussion. I didn't know through typed words you can imply tone. Yeah. And I'm sure, like you said with your text messages, how many emails have I got where I've gone, what do they mean by that? But I never held it against the person.
Yeah.
Do I think that it was a shotgun response by the administrator? Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't want to speak for her, but yeah, probably. Do I think that this has taken on a mind of its own? Yep, it sure has. Not on me. I asked a question, a question that, again, was well within right to ask as a taxpayer and as a resident of that town.
And it's interesting to me. I mean, I would think that if an administration, any administration, is doing the right thing, that they would want to be questioned, that they would want people to volunteer. It just seems that with all the problems, there's bigger fish to fry than the idea of, hey, what's up with my taxes?
Well, and that's just it. You would think that any administration would encourage constructive criticism. You'd almost think that they would encourage the dialogue amongst their volunteers.
Yeah.
And that's the surprising part, right? So is me being a volunteer, me that's given someone, me being someone that gives roughly, I'm in a gym for basketball from mid-November till yesterday, and the busiest time is like late November to the beginning of February. I'm in there close to 40 hours a week. I'm doing basically a full-time job for nothing. I volunteer for this other committee. I'm giving of my time, and I'm sitting there going, if anyone's opinion you should value, it's the one that's working in your community.
Because I think that, a lot of times the reason that people don't step up to volunteer is that very thing. They're working their job, they're taking care of their kids, and they're not even tuned into politics as far as keeping up on current events because they're just too busy.
Well, and it's funny because, I actually don't pay a lot of attention to my local town politics. And for my own personal reasons, but state politics I pay attention to, federal politics I pay attention to. My town politics, I honestly don't pay a whole lot of attention to them. I mean, yesterday I was asked on the radio, how long has Administrator Hamilton been in office? Not a clue. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't have a freaking clue, man. I know I moved there when my daughter was 2 years old. I've been there 9 years, and what I can tell you is that she won the next election. That's all I know. Whether that was the year we moved there, the next year, I don't know. And she's been in office since. and it's not that I don't want to be involved in town politics, but town politics can tend to get very petty.
Yeah.
And they tend to get very personal. I like to believe that I agree with a lot of people in town, and I get along with a lot of people in town, and I'm not going to lose friendships over whether or not a red light should go up at the corner of Main and School Street or whatever. It's not going to happen. So I tend to stay away from town politics. This one I couldn't stay away from, though.
And unfortunately, you have people that thrive off of the divisiveness of small town politics, and it's a shame.
Well, it is a shame, and I think in a way, I mean, a lot of times the politicians put themselves in that place. I mean, you have the right to question your government. When your government leads you astray or does something to make you question them, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. It's going to snowball, kind of like this has happened, and get worse. I think, looking back over the last, week that this has been going on or so, had the administrator approached the situation differently, had she sent she could have sent the letter, she could have called me. I mean, I don't care what she did, and said, listen, you're on a committee, maybe, we can talk about this in private, or we can talk about this at a council meeting, but maybe social media. I mean, I was never made aware of a social media policy.
Right.
So as far as I'm concerned, there isn't one. I mean, whether or not there is, I still don't know. She didn't cite it in the letter. So, it boils down to she's kind of brought this on herself. All the negative attention. I mean, it's not funny when you're watching Channel 10 and your town's on there, and at the end of the interview, Gene Valicenti says, it's kind of like we have our own little Parks and Rec sitcom right here in Rhode Island.
Which this couldn't have been timed better as an issue with the TV show Parks and Recreation wrapping it up, because anybody looking for information on that program is finding Tony Soly instead.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So, but it makes you look silly and petty as a community. And, I'm sure there's going to be naysayers out there that are going to say, well, you brought it up. Well, no, I asked a question on my personal private Facebook page is what I did. I didn't go to the news and go to the media outlets saying this is what happened. I asked a question on my Facebook page and then was asked to step down off a committee, and that's when I went to the news and media outlets, because you know what? My First Amendment says that, last time I checked, the Constitution still worked in North Smithfield. I mean, I didn't realize once I hit the red light up on 146 that, I couldn't say what I wanted to say.
It's once you get to the A&W.
Right. So, I mean, it's, the administration, I shouldn't say the administration, the administrator, because the administration actually had no idea that this was even going on. Mm-hmm. That's another issue unto itself, is that I did have council members reach out to me saying, what's going on? Why are we showing up? And I said, what do you mean what's going on? And they didn't know that the administrator had asked for my resignation. So, again, the administration, I'm not going to shine negative light on the administration. They didn't even know what was going on. Right. It was more of a lone wolf thing.
So do you fear any repercussions in your local area, or do you think that this whole thing is starting to cool down?
I don't know. It doesn't bother me either way. It's funny because, my wife, after this all started unfolding, goes, well, we paid our taxes late, right? And I said, oh yeah, I know. It is like, I don't, big deal. I paid my taxes late. And she goes, all right, I just want to make sure you know. And, then all of a sudden the other day in the mail received my $11.87 fine for being late. So that was conveniently enough, that was printed out on, the 23rd of January, the same day I received the letter from the administrator. I don't know if it's coincidence or not, but, So I'll bring them my $11.87 and iron it all out.
When I ran for office, we really had to sit down and